It is so sad that self-worth in so many circles is tied to net worth. I get it. I used to be there. I used to think that way. And that's what most financial people measure. Yet it's cash flow that drives our lives, not net worth. And it's serving that gives our lives purpose. And retirement is one of the most selfish things that humans can do. Not serve, basically. We were put on this earth to serve. So find a way to serve.
So before we get into this episode, I want to share something special with you. After organizing to scale so many businesses, the thing that I get asked about the most is, how can I scale with all of these tabs open in my brain? And so I created a free training on exactly how I organize to scale businesses in 90-day sprints. If you would like to get access, you can go to stacygray.com/scale. That's Stacy with an I, Gray with an A.com/scale. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Rooted Founder. Today, I get to talk not just money, not just mindset, but how do we create a visceral experience inside of our body, mind, and spirit that allows us to create prosperity and, what I like to say, win eyes opened and eyes closed. So how can we gain financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom, but not sacrifice our presence, our peace, and our purpose? And so my guest today is the amazing Kim Butler. She just released a book that we're going to dive into. And she talks about how, as humans, we're looking for alternatives in the financial industry. And I think all of us right now could be feeling the squeeze, the volatility, and we're realizing that the way things are structured aren't serving us, and we're having a challenging time navigating it. And so Kim, for decades, has been working with people to help them find alternatives. And what she has noticed is that we are being programmed to keep our money at risk in tolerating volatility. And she believes that there's alternatives to this that we can implement from breaking free from this scarcity mindset and adopting this abundance mindset. So Kim, I'm so grateful to have this conversation with you.
Thank you, Stacey. It's a joy to be here.
Just like, I'm in the middle of writing a book. We talked before we hit record. And one of the things that I'm asking myself in the process of writing my book is, what problem does this book solve? And so I want to ask you that. Like, your book is called Busting the Scarcity Mindset, Your Guide to Becoming a Prosperity Thinker. What does that solve for people?
It solves the quest for financial freedom that most Americans, and the thing I love about this book of mine is it's totally appropriate worldwide, have. So the quest for financial freedom that we have, and it starts in our thinking. And that's such a challenge, while at the same time, such a cool thing, because it means that we can define financial freedom completely in our mind, in our brain, in our psyche, in our soul, in our spirit, whatever words you want to use there. And we know that we can make changes very quickly in that space, whereas the actual monetary space may take some time.
So I want to double tap on this, because I feel like this is a concept people talk a lot about, right? What you think affects what you do, and what you do affects the results you get. And we've been hearing this, but people still struggle. They struggle to shift how they think. So in your experience and all the work that you do, what do you think the gap is in our human psychology or our human understanding about money that we're trying to bridge here?
I believe that we are stuck in a gap of the societal definition of financial freedom on one side, which says I have enough money, so much money that I don't have to work for my money. People would typically call it retirement. And the fact that even in America, there's an incredibly small percentage of people that are actually ever going to get monetarily to the space that they absolutely do not have to work. There's some, but it is a very small percent. And when we look at what inflation does and how long us human beings are going to live these days, it is shocking how much money it actually takes to technically, monetarily be financially free. So that begs the question, how could we be or feel financial freedom if we didn't actually have the money in an account that guaranteed that?
Okay, you said two words that I absolutely love. One was quest, and the other is feel. Yeah. And I know so many people, myself included, where I've woken up in my quote unquote dream life, but it didn't feel like I thought it would. Mm-hmm. And then I had to do a lot of this inner healing and this work to create a somatic body, a visceral experience that was safe and secure and abundant, regardless of my external environment. Yep. And for me, that shifted into a quest. So
and that quest should really be ongoing.
It is. It's a calling. It's a divine assignment. So what was your personal journey on that?
It became so evident to me over time, seeing people that had the finances to have that monetary sense of freedom and were unhappy. And I've always had a very, very wide client base, and it's always been nationwide actually since the internet began, which is a bit unusual for a lot of financial people. And then also anytime anybody travels, you see people that have nothing and are as happy as can be. And everywhere in the middle, and realizing what it took to gain that financial freedom in a way that was workable in America today. And now, because I have seen both sides and everywhere in the middle and literally thousands of examples, I work with entrepreneurs a lot like you do. Not only am I seeing the business owners, I'm seeing all their employees, their team members, et cetera. Again, nationwide, lots of conversations, lots and lots and lots of conversations, massive amount of money information through my experience. And I believe that I can state this in a very simple way of what it boils down to.
I want to hear, what is your very simple way?
The confidence that we can be value creators. Because as long as we create value, we can earn money.
So how does someone get to that belief system?
Well, as we know, it starts in our thinking. So our company did a rebrand about 4 or 5 years ago to Prosperity Thinkers. And over the course of that effort, in fact, over one weekend, I bought over 100 URLs. Right? Go daddy, go daddy, go daddy.
Same cloth.
So many entrepreneurs have done that. And I have a whole bunch of them that I would still love to use. And I had literally 30 or 40 names that I was working with. Mm-hmm. And the marketing people were really encouraging me to use something around Kim Butler, but I just really resisted that. I wanted it to be about the people that I serve. I did not want it to be about me. Mm-hmm. And a prosperity thinker, which I ended up just sort of picking, and now over the next 3 or 4 years, learning to just love and be so grateful for. Mm-hmm. A prosperity thinker is someone that goes about life, whether it's the very moment you get up, something in the morning, noon, middle of the afternoon, evening, the second before you go to bed, They go through life with their brain on. So the whole batteries included. Dan Sullivan's famous for that quote. I'm sure many people have said brain on, batteries included. Like that space is prosperity thinking. Mm-hmm. That space is being conscious of what's going on in our thought as it relates to everything that we're doing, whether I'm having a conversation with you or walking the dog or getting ready for my next client or looking at my money. And so when we bring that prosperity thinking, that proactive, consistent, ongoing quest to install in our brains a prosperous mindset, a thinking that aligns with the capability that prosperity has, and I know we'll talk about the definition of that word too, we learn how to become value creators. We can teach others how to become value creators. The coolest thing in the world is a 3-year-old can do this, and someone who is 103 can do this.
So my question is, what do we have to unlearn? Not do we have to learn, but what do we have to unlearn? Because you said install, and I think we run program. We're running a program. And we have to uninstall some things and reinstall some things to get to that prosperity thinking.
Yep.
So I guess let's define prosperity. And then let's talk about what we have to uninstall or unlearn to become a value creator.
So yeah, the definition of prosperity is so important. And really each person needs to decide what it means to them. And so to me, prosperity means that I'm confident that I can be a value creator, become an even better value creator, consistently create value, and do that for my entire life. Mm-hmm. And so each person's going to have their own definition. And in general, around prosperity, I'm not meaning things like toys and trinkets. I'm meaning things like experience and mindsets and peace and elements of prosperity, which is why I love the word prosperity. That's actually been in my marketing/brand since the beginning of time. Even though I did a rebrand, that prosperity word has stayed consistent because I think it's so much more meaningful and broad than, for example, just the term wealth or just the term money or what have you. And as we know, prosperity can absolutely include spiritual elements and human elements of a life well lived, but more important, well living. And the English probably isn't right there, but I want to imply that it's ongoing work and that it's ongoing environments and that it's ongoing growth and it's ongoing prosperity. And we're always learning a little bit, getting a little better. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, et cetera. But this is the space that prosperity lives in that, again, must start in our thinking and then can become more and more a part of who we are and what we do.
Mm-hmm. How much do you think adopting a prosperity mindset is about 2 things, 2 words, identity and permission?
Well, to me, it's everything. I mean, it is absolutely paramount, the first step that must occur. And again, we can learn this at any age, and we have to relearn it sometimes and learn it again and learn it in different ways. We have to give ourselves permission to do that. Earlier, you had also asked, what do we need to unlearn? And it's very, very important, a very tactical, practical thing to unlearn is the concept of retirement as it exists in America today. Let's just bunny rabbit trail on this real quick. The age 65 was chosen in the 1930s. If you do the math to work us forward to where longevity is today, because in the 1930s, most people were dead by age 70 or 75 at the latest, age 87 is the new 65. And I have people in my family that are in their mid 80s that are still working, right? They're still creating value. They're getting paychecks today in their mid 80s. And because of it, They're happy, value creation, prosperity oriented people that are living wonderful lives. And they're not working super long hours or anything, but they are still serving. So that I think is a very important, very specific thing that must be unlearned.
When I hear you saying that, what I'm hearing is self-worth. And there's this concept of your self-worth is directly tied to the number of people that need you in some capacity. And so that is that service leadership or that servant orientation. And I think we have societally been leaning more towards self-indulgence and self-enjoyment, which would be contrarian to a prosperity thinker, because service creates that self-worth, which turns you into a value creator, which gives you a visceral feeling of abundance, which actually, when you get the inside right, the outside will follow.
Yes. It is so sad that self-worth in so many circles is tied to net worth. And I get it. I used to be there. I used to think that way. And that's what most financial people measure. Yet it's cash flow that drives our lives, not net worth. And it's serving that gives our lives purpose. And retirement is one of the most selfish things that humans can do. Not serve, basically. We were put on this earth to serve. So find a way to serve. And if it's an hour of volunteer a week, that's beautiful. Serve. And that's what's so fun and why that 3-year-old can do it.
You just said something too that was really powerful, and it made me think of our self-worth being tied to our net worth. Is something I've been calling in business like business codependency, but it's really bank account codependency. Like when our bank account is up, we're happy. When it's down, we're not happy. When our team's happy, we're happy. When they're not happy, we're not happy. When our clients are happy, we're happy. When they're not, they're not. And we take ourselves on this emotional roller coaster, and we tie our identity and self-worth to the outcome or results, which is fickle, instead of what do you believe is the freedom path for us to tie our self-worth to.
So it's uber important. You're on a right track there. That alignment that you get to choose every hour of every day is of utmost importance in living a life of prosperity. And so whatever you align to that is your maker or father, mother, God, or whatever other term you want to use, that alignment and reconnecting to that alignment, sometimes numerous times throughout the day, is what is definitive of our worth. And it is how we know that we're serving. When we're serving that higher power, first mentally in our thinking and what our thoughts are circling around, which means we have to be very important as to what we feed our thinking on a daily basis. Watch out for this guy, right? That cell phone is an opportunity for growth and good, and an opportunity for everything that we don't want. So being real conscious of this and aligning with the values that we have identified for ourselves, which takes some work and takes some work again and again and again, like it's total quest, right? None of this is ever done, is where we can bring that prosperity perspective to whatever the human task is at hand, whether it's the business, the conversation with a team member, or, some personal thing that we're working on.
So if we were to land this a little bit more tactically, I resonate with everything you're saying. What do you do? What are some practices you do to stay aligned and to feed the wise one in you, not the wounded one in you?
Great words. So I'll start with some spiritual, personal practices, and then I'll talk about some monetary practices because they can absolutely be tied together. So how I begin my day is of utmost importance. And it doesn't matter what time I wake up. And my children are grown, so I have a relatively easy morning compared to families with kids. But I've always lived on a farm. We have alpacas, so I've got to get out to the barn and do that kind of thing. So it doesn't matter. Sometimes I'm literally underneath the covers with my cell phone on, reading my Bible lesson. Sometimes I'm walking to the barn with that same Bible lesson or something else from a spiritual food standpoint in my headset. I'm getting spiritual food, inspirational food, if that's a better word. Some people don't like the word spiritual. Use the word inspirational. But the food at absolute second one of my brain being awake is imperative. And sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's an hour. Nevertheless, it's pretty consistent. It's usually around 30 minutes. Feed, right? And then always, let's say 90%, because I don't think anything is always, at the noonish hour, sometime in the middle of the day, I try to realign. And it might literally mean just going back and grabbing a sentence out of that Bible lesson. Or maybe it is a completely different book that I happen to be reading that I find inspirational, or a quote somebody gave me. But just for a minute in the middle of the day, and sometimes it's an hour, depends on my day, realigning with that food, very, very important. And then at the end of the day, it's gratitude. And really throughout the day, it's gratitude, right? Like, what can I find to be grateful for? And how specific can I be in that gratitude? And how up-leveled or spiritual or inspirational can I be? I'll tell you a quick story. So we have had in our past a Great Dane dog.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, this is a rather physically large animal, as most people know, and beautiful, soft, so fun to pet, right? Like, that's the physical thing that I can be grateful for. Well, the spiritual or inspirational elements of a dog are equally important to be grateful for. And that's unconditional love. That's genuine happiness. That's all the things that we know that dogs can represent. So I always love finding both elements, right? I'm a human being. I exist in a physical, material world. Great. Be grateful for some of that and up-level it. It's that friend, and what does she bring to the table that I'm picking out of a particular thing to be grateful for? It's that dog and the unconditional love. What is that inspirational element, and adding that in? So that's answering your question, maybe.
So I call what you just called the Great Dane and then the unconditional love, I call it earth eyes and ethereal eyes.
Ooh, yes.
So we get to wear both eyes and we get to experience both. We're a bridge.
Absolutely. Well said.
So I love that. I love that.
So on the monetary side, and you said this well when you introduced me, I probably, like most of your listeners, have been exposed to just about every investment out there. I'm sure I've missed a few. Nevertheless, I've seen a lot in the 3 decades that I've been helping people with their personal finances. And it's wonderful, and it's attractive, and it's amazing. And it can lose money, and nobody's talking about it. So in the second 30 years of my career, because I absolutely believe that 87 is the new 65, I have become uber dedicated to the very boring space of saving as a verb and savings as a noun. And I believe that if more of America saved and had savings, we're talking the really boring stuff, right? Cash. Don't tell me that your stock account is your emergency account, because if it were down, you wouldn't want to sell. And don't tell me that that awesome real estate deal that you trust is going well, and maybe it is for a period of time, is absolutely positively going to continue to go well, because they just don't always go well. Yet, when we have cash and liquidity, I have a little acronym, CLUE, control, liquid, or liquidity. utilize for anything I want. So don't tell me your retirement plan is your emergency account, because it really shouldn't be. And then E acts like equity, meaning you can borrow against it. Clue, CLUE, is the measurement of a lot of peace of mind. And the cool thing is, if you're a young family and you don't have a lot of money, you can still have an emergency fund that solves the peace of mind need. And it may be $10,000 for you. Great. Get there and then stop thinking about emergencies and shift your focus to that opportunity fund, but keep it liquid. There's so many people that want to get into investing, and so many people go straight into retirement accounts and they have no savings, the noun, the storage of liquid wealth, and they have no savings habits, the verb of actually putting money away on the boring, consistent basis that we must do. And so installing that, I like to think about it like a building. You know, people are on these 10-story buildings and they're up on the third and the fourth floor with their investments, and they don't have a solid foundation. And that foundation is the liquidity. And yes, you can store it maybe in a little better place than just cash at a bank. Maybe it's cash value at a life insurance company, but get the liquidity there. And you know how in a building you can actually shore up a foundation? Like there's companies out there that go shove cement underneath buildings. You can do that with your money too. And when you do, you will have more prosperity because you will have more peace of mind.
As I'm hearing you talk, I'm thinking about the bigger, better, more trap, or the performance perfection trap, and how we want to go from floor 1 to floor 4 or to floor 6. And it's a little bit of like keeping up with the Joneses. It's a little bit of bigger, better, more. It's the performance perfection. It's the wanting the recognition or the accolades. It's wanting a sense of significance and value from external versus internal. And so I'm curious, because you've been on this journey, I've been on this journey, and we've had a before way of thinking to an after way of thinking. And if you were to take somebody by the hand who has this before way of thinking and guiding them step by step to this after way of thinking, how would you walk that person there?
So first of all, I believe that we are all 100% disciplined to our existing set of habits. So the thinking that we may be stuck in, which I'd like to add one to your list, it's a little element of we want something for nothing.
Entitlement.
Yeah. We want to put $100K in and have it turn into $1 million sale or whatever, right? So because unfortunately the word work in our society has turned into a negative word, which is a shame, and you and I will work to change the definition of work. We've got this disconnect between what life is like. And so bringing it back to habits, I think, is sometimes an easier thing for people to grasp. And it's never one big thing, right? I mean, I suppose it could be, but I don't think I know any, maybe one exception where it was one big thing. It's a whole bunch of series of little things. So those little things start in our thinking, and they start the moment we wake up, and it's that space of gratitude and removal of expectations and complaints. We are in the habit of complaining. And it could be I remember a funny story. You've got a high-level movie producer in a third world country producing a movie, dealing with horrificness around him. True story. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the guy, but on the phone with his daughter who's complaining about the foam on her coffee. Wasn't that a lesson, right? So we want to complain, and we're in the habit of complaining, and it takes some time. So we know that it takes, in theory, 21 days to break a habit, but I think this one might take a little longer. Get your friends together, get your accountability buddies, and stop the complaining. And the way to do that is literally just shut up. Like if you feel it coming out of your mouth, just shut up. And then in time, you'll learn to fill it with something that you can find grace and gratitude about. You know, you go to the restaurant with your friends, and what do you want to complain about? The service or the whatever. Well, surely in that space, you can find something also to be grateful for. So shut the trap on the complaint, open your mouth around the gratitude. And then very similarly, trade the expectations for appreciation. I just got off the Zoom call. So I work out with a virtual trainer. I live in the middle of nowhere. We don't have any physical trainers around here. I need accountability.
Me
so
too. Same.
my gracious Nancy, who has worked with me since the kids were born, dials in on a little robot thing that we have. It's basically like Zoom. And so we're working out, and she's telling me that just this past weekend, she had a party for her 90-year-old mother, and somebody brought children to the party. And her mother's very capable, but Nancy was, first of all, not prepared, kind of had this, her expectations weren't necessarily met. And she knew she had to lose that attitude. And so she said, I literally just put my head down for half a second. And then I put my head back up and I said, welcome. And I figured out something to appreciate about those kids. And she said, it was awesome. Like they were the life of the party. It was super helpful. I was so glad they were there. So this is an example of trading expectations for appreciation.
I was in a yoga class once, and the instructor said, if you're having resistance to the pose, just blink. You can change how you see the pose.
Yes.
It's so true. We just have to blink our eyes. We can go from earth eyes to ethereal eyes in just blinking.
Yes.
And I want to resonate with the complain, blame narrative. I feel like as humans, and especially with, like you said, what's being programmed into us with, I don't even know what to call it. And so I'm not going to use a word. It's very easy to trigger that somatic reply in us. It's very easy to get us into fear mode. And what I have learned on my own journey, and I'm sure you can resonate with this, is that when I am in a complain or blame narrative, I can just blink and I can shift it. Gratitude is the antidote. And there's a truth in the judgment that I am being invited to heal. So a word or a saying I like to say to myself when I notice that I am having a judgment around something is judgment is a confession. And we're confessing that I feel inadequate, or I feel not enough, or I feel ill-prepared, or I feel like I'm embarrassed, or I feel like I'm going to get judged, or I feel some type of deficiency, which is a scarcity mindset. And so the shift is I'm whole and complete and I'm enough, regardless of if the grandkids are coming over and I wasn't prepared for it or not. That's not a reflection around who I am and my self-worth. I am here to blink and create an environment of unconditional love, as going back to the Great Dane, that is, there's a saying I sign all my emails with, and it's grace, gratitude, grit. And it's in line with what you just said. We have the grace. We're gifted this grace to blink and have etherealized. That is the gift of grace. And then we get to see it with gratitude. And then we get to have grit. But grit isn't just this co-creation with effort. It's that. But it's also, my sister calls it, God really is there.
Oh, I've never heard that definition of grit, and it's a favorite word of mine. Ah.
Yes. And everything that you're talking about, and I haven't read your book yet, but like if your book is any amount of depth to this level of transformation, this is going to help people shift and heal, not just their bank accounts, but their bodies, their dinner tables, their relationships. And my mission is to restore dinner tables one boardroom at a time. And it feels like we are on a similar crusade.
Well, there's so much good that can happen at dinner tables. And the type of clientele that I love serving are those young families that are still open and can make changes and can have impacts at their dinner tables. So yes, what a fun thing for us to align on.
Yes. What would you want that young family to know when they pick up your book?
Well, Busting the Scarcity Mindset is written with myself and Kristen Huggins, whose company is called Joyful Communications.
I love it.
And I've actually known Kristen for a long, long time. And this is a new company of hers. And I was kind of thinking about her as my co-author. And then I saw what she had called her company, Decision Made, because it is a very, you can do this, prosperous approach to busting the scarcity mindset. I mean, those are some strong words, just like grit is a strong word, and how important having grit is in doing the work that we need to do, which we need to bust scarcity mindsets every single day, sometimes every hour. It's not a question of whether you get into the scarcity mindset or not, because that's going to happen. It's how quickly you get out and what you use to get yourself out. And so we've got 8 chapters with a 9th bonus one. Are you ready for the title of the bonus chapter?
Yes.
The Metaphysical Economy.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so good. I can't wait to read that chapter. Yes.
Yep. Because our economy, whether I'm talking about my family's economy that I'm handling at the dinner table to answer your question, or the worldwide economy or the US economy or whatever, it is happening right up here. And so the very specific things that that young family can do is, first of all, cut in half the amount of money they're spending on their children. And if they can, double the amount of time they're spending with their children. And then there are some very specific things that...
Can we just pause right there? That is an incredible shift.
Yeah.
It's a powerful shift because in my work, most people build businesses to create freedom, then end up trapped in the very businesses designed to create that freedom away from their families. And they're doing it for money. They're doing it for currency. But they're paying the price at their dinner table with energetic currency. Because energy, we're having an energetic exchange right now that is a currency. And when we spend more money on our families instead of more time with our families, we're valuing a currency over the other. We're literally idolizing one currency over another currency, and we're totally mislabeling and mismanaging time. This whole shift is about honoring it with a currency that cannot be measured.
Yep.
Oh, so good.
And it's so fun to do, and it's so doable, and it can be done in baby steps. And there's very specific things. So the book covers some of this, but we have a whole community that's called Prosperity Parents. And there's very specific things that can be done both at the monetary level as well as at that thinking level, so that the two can come together to change habits, because that's all it is it's habits.
Yes. And it's the courage to choose habits that heal.
Yeah.
Which
and not what the house next door is choosing.
Yes. Yes. Because it's meant to create inner peace and inner congruence. And when you're aligned, going back to alignment, when your inner world is solid, your outer world will be a reflection of that.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so excited for this book to be released and share it. I can't wait to read that last chapter.
Well, thank you.
Yes. When I got the book title, I didn't know the depth. And now I'm just so appreciative of the depth that we were able to go into on this. So if people want to get a copy of the book or connect with you, how might they do that?
BustingScarcityMindset.com is where the book's journey can start. It is first going to be released on Kindle on Amazon, and then we'll come behind, hopefully just a month or so, with a physical copy. But there are some graphs and pictures in it that needed a little extra time. So we're taking the extra time to create those in a valuable way. And then, of course, there will be an Audibles version as well, because I'm a big believer in asking people how they learn best. Do they like to read? Do they like to watch? Do they like to listen? I'm trusting the AI space will soon figure out a way for us to feed a book and create a video.
Yeah.
That will be wonderful, so that people that like to watch can get that. But at least the Audible version is helpful. And, there's a lot of information too about that is actually sometimes more meaningful to people than video. Because of the fact that it's usually in our headsets. It's literally being spoken to our minds, not just our ears. And so things like podcasts and Audible books are so valuable to people, because we need to find our own tribe. We need to find that group that we can serve and love what we're doing, so that we can serve for the rest of our life and have a habit and a mindset that says, I am here to serve for the rest of our life, because in that service is where I will get my freedom and grace and grit. And then you got a wonderful little circle there going, because you have more gratitude, so you can have more grit. So then you get more grace, and then you just keep going. And it just up levels like a nice little gentle, soft tornado wind that's not destructive.
It uninstalls all the right things and installs all the other way around. But yes.
Yes, you got it.
This has been so delightful. And I just want to honor you, because I know your son and spend time with him with his business ventures. And you have created a family that really has this embodied perspective. And so this is not something that you are just teaching and sharing from your personal experience, but it's actually what you've already taught your kids, and they are also embodying and doing. And I'm excited for you on this journey, because more parents who are doing this are installing this prosperity thinking into the next generation, which is the environment that all of us are going to live in 20, 30 years. And so this is such a crusade. It's such a movement. It's such a campaigning for the calling, for the assignment, for the clarity that I want in my world. And I know that you want in the world, and everyone listening wants in this world. So I just want to honor you for the courage to follow the calling and overcome all the things that you had to overcome to do that.
Well, thank you. There's nothing more joyful than seeing your own adult children out in the marketplace being value creators and amazing humans. It gives such joy to see that. And yet at the same time, while I'm very humbly grateful for it, I'm also very clear that they are Father, Mother, God's children, and they are doing His work in their own world. And I am here to watch.
Yes, we're all soul soldiers together. So my last question is, what does success mean to you?
Helping more people in more ways. And that is just that ongoing, I really got to think of a better analogy, because the tornado can be challenging, but I love the vision, right, of that ever expanding, moving space of bigger and bigger. And it's why I'm so grateful for this book, because all of my other books, this is my 11th, and the other 10 are all very specific to America and personal finance in America. Busting Scarcity Mindset is ready for worldwide.
I love it. Well, I will put all of that in the show notes. It's been an honor to have you on, and everyone listening, myself included, and go to bustingscarcitymindset.com to get your copy of the book. And I would love it if you came back and put in the comments or sent us a DM with what your biggest takeaway is and how it has blessed not just your mindset, but also your dinner table. Cheers, y'all.
Thank you, Stacey.